Okay, this is a little supplemental video on the PARD008 LRF. Some things I've learned and Bruce has learned, some hints and tips. There's going to be a little bit of a look of the rifle, the scope rather in use, and some tips for nighttime use and for supplemental IR. And then I'm going to splice afterwards comparisons from one of my permissions. Daytime and nighttime in a barn, and then I'm going to splice after that some footage from the same barn recorded last winter in pitch darkness with a Photon RT, just for a comparison, and because that was my only previous experience of having a night vision scope. And then after that I've got, the other thing in the barn is I've got some footage comparing using the LRF, the vertical alignment beam, against a vertical doorway, panning back and forth, so you can see how it reacts, panning up and down the vertical beam up and down over a horizontal crossbar on the back of a tractor trailer. So hopefully, again, useful for you. And then there's going to be some footage from a paddock that I recorded at midnight on Friday, and that's using the onboard IR on all three strengths, and then using an add-on IR on different strengths, because my previous PARD008 and 008 LRF footage, the IR wasn't focused, so that was my bad. Basically, it's not a clear representation of what it can do. So, okay, let's get started. Okay, so here's the PARD008 LRF with the laser rangefinder module built in, very compact. This is it mounted on my FAC Air Arms S510. Now, a couple of observations. One is that the excellent Shader 8, which Ash Custom Rifle Scopes sells as an add-on for the PARD008, it's a very, very snug fit. It's perfect. And with this little dial, that's it fully open. And when you turn the iris and close it right down, the PARD is so sensitive, the electronics in this fella, that when that's closed right down, you can still see through the image. It gets a bit grainy, and if you have that iris partly open, it can improve the depth of field at nighttime, and it can also improve the contrast if you're in bright sunlight. And I've found this myself, trying to focus the PARD on 008, all the 008 LRF, trying to focus them on a white target sheet, and it all seems a bit sort of too bright, a bit blinding, and you can no longer see the graduations and the pellet holes and such like. So if you close the iris down, say part way like so, or even slightly smaller, from speaking to people on the night vision forums and Airgun BBS and airgunforum.co.uk, then apparently this really helps a lot of different situations. So for 20 quid, that's an excellent piece of kit. You can see I've added a coaster to this one, and I'll show you why in a second. Ash is now including, free of charge, Custom Rifle Scopes, a slightly more basic shader without the iris, and this is a slightly, I would say, it's snuggish. It's decently snug, but it's not as snug as the Shader 8 is on the PARD008. And apparently this is due to you guys, the customers, their feedback. They wanted it to be less snug. So I've added, you'll see here, if I rotate this around, I've added 3/4 of the way around the objective focus ring. I've added some black electrical tape so that it makes the Shader 8 a bit more of a snug fit on the PARD008 LRF. Right, let's get it to there. So anyway, if I pop the Shader 8 back on here, excuse the shakiness, right, and that the coaster is slack. So if I tighten that up a bit, now the coaster is also rotating the focus ring. Now straight away, those eagle-eyed amongst you will see with the coaster vertical, it's going to block the onboard IR. The reason the coaster's on there, because normally you don't need it, because this sort of proud keyway replicates the existing one, and with the shader in place lets you easily fine-tune the focus. But as you'll see from the footage towards the end of this video, I had an add-on IR torch I was trying, which came from Clive Ward at the Night Vision store, and I haven't got it here because Bruce has borrowed it to do some testing on it, comparing to his own illuminators. But basically, I had that added on here with one of these, a Boris Signature Z ring, which is basically a 1-inch Picatinny ring, but it's got a slightly enlarged center, and it comes with a split ring, and this lets you attach the Boris Z ring on here, tighten it up, pop on the IR torch, angle it, and then using the 2 screws, tighten it so you end up with, hopefully, with your IR torch matching your point of aim at whatever your chosen range is. So with that, with an add-on IR on the side, it then becomes quite fiddly from the shooter's perspective at this end to reach round past, if you imagine the torch being here, it becomes quite fiddly. So hence having the coaster to fine tune, because after all, once the external IR's on, you have the onboard IR switched off, you're prolonging battery life, and I then adjusted, your focus is, you know, between sort of 30 and 70 meters. You don't need to move this ring very much. So you can adjust the position of the coaster, and I'll probably include links to the coasters below and all the other kit. But basically with this vertical, you can fine tune the focus without blocking the IR torch and without blocking the laser rangefinder. So that's my findings from the practically hands-on using an add-on IR illuminator with the PARD008 LRF. And the PARD008 would be the same if you have an external, like the LE032. If you had an external add-on rangefinder mounted on the PARD008's external Picatinny rail, then you'd have the same possible issue to overcome. So this is all from experience. And coasters, cheap as chips. The multi-purpose daylight and nighttime excellent shader 8 is only £20, and via a little bit of electrical tape it becomes a snug fit on the 008 LRF. So right, hopefully that'll explain some of the footage that you'll see later on. Okay, next day, and I am hoping to get this video online either tonight or tomorrow morning, but next day, and I reviewed the footage I had so far for this video and realised I forgot a few important things, so I'm going to add these in right now. So one thing people who are new to the PARD008 or 008 LRF might take a minute to get used to is the bracket has been designed horizontal, so there is no MOA angle to allow for lowish powered rifles. So I dare say if you put the PARD008 or 008 LRF on a 17 HMR or 17 Hornet, then flat shooting would be no problem to zero. With air rifles, even FAC air rifles and rimfire, subsonic or not, you got such a trajectory that an awful lot of us have found with both the PARD008 and 008 LRF, we've found that when you zero, the reticle, the crosshair, ends up very low down, about here in the box, in the screen. So to avoid that, because basically if you're only looking at the bottom of the screen, you're seeing a lot of stuff you don't need to, and you might be missing stuff further down in the foreground. So shimming is the way to go. Shimming is the reason this can has been sitting here, because I just butchered a can just last Friday night to get some thin pieces of shim, a couple of millimeters by about 10 mil, and had them in my wallet. And then when I was zeroing this rifle with the 008 LRF in the barn on Friday night, I used some shims. One piece of shim folded 3 ways, so 3 ply if you like, which Bruce then measured on Sunday as 0.7 millimeters thick, was enough to, underneath the back of the PARD bracket, was enough to angle the back of the PARD slightly upwards, which effectively brings the screen down and lifts the crosshair into the center, which is where you want it. So that's what I did with my 008 and then my 008 LRF. But there's a slightly cleverer way. I'll upload a photo and splice it in around about here. Showing the PARD and its Picatinny adapter apart with a small shim in the channel, exactly where it goes. But the cleverer alternative was come up with by Bruce, and I'll also splice in a photo right about here of Bruce's adapter, which because the PARD008 LRF has 5 holes, so they're a bit closer together, and there's no longer enough space, well, there's not so much space between them, then he's used M3 holes, drilled an M3 hole, drilled and tapped M3, and then from underneath an M3 grub screw screwed up through, and just to be literally match that 0.7 of a millimeter proud, and that's a permanent shim. Plus it's adjustable. So if you use a different cartridge, or high powered or low powered, and your zeroed reticle was a little bit too far away from being in the center of the eyepiece, center of the screen, then you can adjust the grub screw higher or lower to adjust the shimming. So here we are looking underneath the tail end of the PARD008 LRF adapter, and you can see a single hole about where my fingertip is in between the 2 bracket mounting holes, and that's where the M3 grub screw is. I no longer need, with the PARD008 LRF with the laser rangefinder built in, I no longer need the Velcro on the side, which is to hold the add-on rangefinder's remote on-off switch. Basically, using the LRF, you press a quick press on the golf flag button, activates the laser rangefinder. It displays, as you'll see on the eyepiece, it's to the right of the reticle, and it goes off automatically after 2 minutes. So once you put it on, just ignore it. It'll switch off by itself once you don't need it anymore. And obviously, a longer press of the golf flag starts and stops the PARD's HD recording function, day or night. So just to explain a bit further, the recommended IR torch I've chosen is the Lite Dark Engine, great name, from Night Vision Store from Clive Ward, who you'll know from some of the Night Vision and other airgun forums. I've got the Boris Signature Z clamps you've just seen. I'll put links to both below. And while this is a hints and tips video, one other thing Bruce was explaining to me, because he knows more than I'll ever know about night vision. The 850 nanometer wavelength Dark Engine is the one I've gone with, because it matches very, very, very similar to the PARD's IR Illuminator. Yeah, let's get framed. Right, so he says, and there might be a little bit more of a red glow from the front. That shouldn't really spook my quarry, but he said keep an eye on it. The alternative is the 940 nanometer wavelength Blacklight Dark Engine, different wavelength of IR torch, which is more discreet, but not quite as in tune with the average night vision scope's electronics. So I've gone with the one that's going to provide the maximum illumination, and I'm hoping that on my permissions that the faint red glow of the IR illuminator on the rifle won't spook any of the quarry. So, shimming the PARD is pretty much required for air rifle use or rimfire, and you've got the Coke can version here behind me, or you have the version I just showed you, which is a lot cleverer and a bit more repeatable and adjustable, and that's the Grub screw version M3. And there's another alternative. So this bracket is the ZB Lite Pro from customriflescopes.com, and basically, if I can show it to you, so we have it slots onto a rifle's Picatinny rail or Picatinny rail adapter if you're using a dovetail, as I am. There's a recoil arrestor stud at one end and a Picatinny on top. There's a hinge at the aft end and two turrets at the forward end, and they've got, this is the forward end because when you look at it, there's your line by which you click the turrets against. So right hand turret, 1/4 inch, 100 yards for one click, left or right. Left hand turret, 1/4 inch, 100 yards up and down. So if you want to avoid shimming in between the PARD body and the PARD Picatinny adapter, you could use one of these onto a dovetail adapter or straight onto a Picatinny rail, and it will take care of any misalignments. The turrets are very positive, pretty solid. They're not going to move accidentally in a hurry, and I'll be doing a full review of this in probably the December now, the December issue of Airgun World, together with the Rangemaster laser rangefinder scope, which is an optical scope including a laser rangefinder, and it's in that box. So Bruce and I were looking at that on Sunday. So there'll be a lot more details of this upcoming. And I'll be doing a YouTube video to accompany that article. And this item will be available very soon as a standalone item from customriflescopes.com. This has been kindly loaned by Ash for me to try. And there'll be more information on this. I won't go over the top right now. There'll be more information on this when I do that video. But basically, it's 145mm long, weighs 200 grams, very solidly built, and it allows you to adjust for windage or elevation. Okay, next little thing I want to mention is the add-on IR, and Bruce may have my Blacklight Dark Engine and its Burris Signature Z mount, which I showed you at the start of the video, but there is an alternative, and a cheaper alternative, you could say. So this little gadget is, you can see in the channel there, that's the giveaway. This is a double Picatinny bracket, very compact, very light, just cost a couple of quid, also from customriflescopes.com, and this allows you, via the Picatinny accessory bracket on the side of the PARD008LRF or 008, if I just try and do this with one hand, this allows you to use what I'm holding here and adapt it and put it directly on the side of the PARD, or either PARD. And this is a Deben lead ray F600 lamp, just a conventional 4 color lamp, red, blue, green and white, with variable control, variable intensity, and so on. But if you picture this is a 1-inch tube, so if you picture this being an IR torch, you can use the Deben lead ray bracket, which has an excellent, very versatile, you can see here, very versatile pivot socket, ball joint. You can use that and put it on the side of the PARD, which I've just quickly done here for you. So you can see there, one little bracket allows you to put an existing gun lamp mount with a great ball joint with a lot of, I'll just loosen it slightly, there's a lot of give in this ball joint. You can really pivot. So I can see myself using this, perhaps not where I want to walk around on permission with the rifle hanging around my neck as usual, because this side is usually against my chest, so this will get in the way. But for static sniping, I can see myself using this. And the great thing about this is the adjuster to tighten or loosen the socket for adjustment to lock it is finger friendly and therefore glove friendly. You're not going to be fumbling. Once you've got this bracket in place, then you're not going to be fiddling with Allen keys to tighten or loosen the mount. So, having done those little supplemental extras, which I remembered occurred to me at work today, having filmed those, I'll splice those in. I think realistically this is enough for the first part of this video. So what I'll do is I'll try and edit the next video with the outdoor footage in the barn and on the permission on Friday night, I'll try and edit that together on probably Sunday coming. So that's only 3 or 4 days away. So hope you found this informative, especially those of you who've either got PARD008s or 008 LRFs or who are seriously considering them. Don't let the shimming requirement put you off. These are awesome. These are outstanding bits of kit. This makes the top quality night vision kit with the full HD day and night capability. Makes it affordable for a lot more of us. It's great with me.